Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also get more information and return to previous shows on our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Michele Colletti. And Michele, before we go any further, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay. And that's Michele Colletti. And Michele Colletti moved to South Carolina, and that's where you are now? You're taping this in South Carolina?
Yes.
Okay. Michele is originally from Connecticut. She moved 10 years ago to the South Carolina area, and she's Greenville Technical College professor, as well as professional singer, actor, and a director of Murder on the Orient Express at Hendersonville Theater. And so, Michele, what I always ask people initially when I speak to them is, in terms of as a child, you grew up where?
I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay. As a girl growing up in Connecticut, young woman growing up in Connecticut, did you always know you wanted to be in theater?
No, I did not. I always knew I wanted to be a singer.
Right.
I actually went to Hart School of Music as a child, 10, 11, 12 years old. My mother would cart me there to West Hartford to the community division to take voice lessons. My instructor, Juliet Dodge, was a opera singer, wonderful opera singer, and I wanted to sing Carole King and Carly Simon and all those wonderful folk singers. So I worked with her once a week, and it wasn't until I was 19 that I auditioned for my first theater production.
Well, back to then the teacher you had, is she still around?
She is not.
Um,
No,
Too bad,
no.
because we could have told her we were talking about her, but somewhere
Yes.
she's listening.
Oh,
So you took voice lessons. So were you singing like when you were in high school?
I was. Yes, I was in our choir, Roundtable Singers at Manchester High School, and I was a member of that and did some other talent shows and things like that that came up along the way. Yep. Yeah, I
Have you
just
ever
had
been in?
never had an interest in full theater productions until I saw an audition and decided to just go try out.
So you were 19 when that took place?
Mhm.
What was
Yep.
the show?
Godspell.
Okay, and was that the first show you were in?
That was the first show I was in. I got to blast out Turn Back Old Man, which was the best part, I thought, for a female back then. And I have a very brassy voice, so it lent itself well to that role.
Well, I would say so, but it's just a great first show to be in. It
Yes.
reminds me of an idea I've shared with Victoria at Hendersonville, but I think as a fundraiser for local theater, that everybody should go back and recreate the first role.
Wouldn't that be
So
wonderful?
like when you were older than some other actors do a
Yes.
first role, but when you did even Godspell, did they have a tape of that? Did they video of it?
I do. I'm going to date myself now. I have a VHS tape of it. So who
Okay.
knows if I'll ever be able to see it again.
Well, let's see,
Or if it's
convert
even
it.
good to convert to a DVD.
Okay, yeah, I guess you could do that, but that'd really be cool. So that started you off, Godspell, great first show to be in, and then you started acting after that.
I did. I did the dinner circuit. Dinner theater circuit was very big in Connecticut. Big splashy dinner theaters. They were around quite a bit, 400 people all eating while you were doing your show in the round. And I did that circuit for a couple of years, which was a lot of fun. Met a lot of people. Really enjoyed myself.
It,
Got married actually while I was doing dinner theater. Had my first child while I was doing dinner theater, and then decided when my second child was on the way that it was time to be a mom and give up theater for a little bit, which I did for 25 years until moving to
well,
Grand.
that was something. So right in the middle of a dinner theater, you had a baby right in the middle of a show.
I did. I was actually doing No No Nanette, and the show closed. I was 4 months pregnant. That was my last show.
So it's funny you mention that because yeah, it's a shame you don't see as much dinner theater as you used to, at least
You
in
don't.
this area.
You don't.
Henderson, you may have heard Hendersonville recently did a couple of dinner theater productions. I don't know if
Yes.
you saw that,
Yes.
which is kind of
Yep.
cool. But yeah, I remember I used to go to theaters in the round, and there'd be like five, 600 people, and
Hmm.
they were great, but I haven't
Yeah.
seen that in a long time. So you decided after your second child, you gave up acting for a while?
Yes. I went back to school and back to college, got my associates and my bachelor's and my master's, and started working in the nonprofit world. I did hook up with a cabaret company, so I was doing some singing throughout that, which was far less of a commitment, you know, 1 or 2 shows a month. And that led me to recording a CD, independently recorded CD with a jazz trio called Walk with the Dreamers, which is
Okay,
on
very exciting.
iTunes
So,
and
so
my website. Yeah,
you've
so
done a lot of different stuff in theater then.
a lot of different, yeah, avenues for sure.
Well, fast forward then, if you would, to where we are now. So all of a sudden, I heard that you're going to be directing then.
Yes.
Now, have you directed before?
I have. I directed in Connecticut when I was working in nonprofits. I directed big, splashy review shows for fundraisers. We worked in Hartford, Connecticut, the capital of Connecticut, and was doing major fundraisers. Always tried to get a big name person in as well to raise money for the nonprofit. And so I directed that, and then not again until COVID, when I heard that Sean Brennan, who wrote The Tin Woman, had come up with a show that he decided to give to theaters to use as a fundraiser during COVID. And I jumped at the chance for my local theater that I've done my work in since moving to South Carolina and directed a show called Couples by Sean Brennan. And he was wonderful along the way, working with me to hit all the nuances and the storyline. And I believe it's been viewed almost 10,000 times at this point. It's on
Now, was
YouTube.
that done virtually?
It was a virtual performance. I
Okay.
recorded it through Zoom. We rehearsed through Zoom, edited through Zoom, and the final copy went to Center Stage in downtown Greenville. And it was a big success. It really was.
And
I know several theaters around the United States were privileged enough to be able to do that for their theaters.
and to his credit, that was quite a gift he gave to people,
It was
because
quite a gift. It sure was. Yeah,
again, during COVID, some other theaters were trying to do stuff virtually, but sometimes it just didn't make it.
it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. Sure. I'm
And
glad we're back live and in person. I'm glad those
okay.
days are behind us.
And then all of a sudden you come into the area and we get hit with a hurricane, so let me ask you that talking about the upcoming thing you're going to be doing, did that affect your rehearsals or performances of this?
It sure did. It sure did. We're actually 5 weeks off schedule. And when I say I can't tell you how blessed I am, my whole entire cast of 11 was able to reschedule to begin rehearsals again this past Saturday for the show opening this coming Saturday. We were rehearsing on Zoom in the afternoons prior to the hurricane, and the hurricane hit. We were supposed to open 2 weeks later. That was our crunch time when the set was going up and costumes and everything else, and we couldn't, no one could get there. So we were crossing our fingers and toes, hoping that, Victoria over at Hendersonville Theater was going to be able to get the show back up and running. And she did. She found a spot for us, and all 11 actors were able to come back. I can't tell you how blessed I was for
And
that.
talk about that, Michelle, I guess, in terms of putting on a show, both from directing it and putting it on virtually versus in real life. So that's interesting. You mentioned that all your rehearsals, for the most part, were virtual.
For the first week and a half, I did virtual rehearsals. And it's the one takeaway from COVID that I learned that I sort of latched onto. I, in directing, really like to build character relationships. And I don't think we need to be in person for that. So, because this cast was doing afternoon rehearsals, the evening time was slotted for the main stage shows. I did a week and a half of virtual rehearsals with certain scenes and certain actors. I was able to let them get a feel for the read and a feel for each other and how they wanted to react and interact with each other. So it really worked beautifully for this particular project to start out via Zoom. I'm really happy we're now in the theaters and live and blocking and getting the lights and sound and everything else added. But it worked out great to start out that way for this show, for
You're
sure.
also telling me that the other problem you had in doing this show is that because the delay factor, I guess, you lost some of the original cast. Is that correct?
Yes, I did lose. I didn't lose some of the original cast from the hurricane till now, but we actually auditioned for this show months and months ago. And so the original cast that I had put into the roles, a few of them had to back out when we started rehearsals. So, but we have a stellar cast for this performance. I am really, really excited about them.
And one of the things I'm impressed with what you're telling me is, and I'll ask you to talk about Rita's Theater in general, but you mentioned that, so your folks are going to be in costume?
So I'm doing my Readers Theater a little differently. Readers Theater can be sitting in chairs
Right.
with music stands in front of you, flipping through the book and just reading your role. Readers Theater can be up on your feet and moving around a little with your books. We are going full-fledged production with
Very
our
exciting.
books. So my show is full lighting and sound. The set is incredible, full costumes and makeup props. And the only thing is that they're going to have their books in their hand.
Well, it got me interested now because again, my feeling is a lot of times Reader's Theater is very static. But this, I don't think I've only saw one other Reader's Theater. They're actually in costume, and this is the first I've heard they actually have a set you have going on there
Beautiful
too.
set.
And I guess
Yes.
some of the people, I guess because that they're so familiar with the script, some of them, I guess, pretty come close to being off book. Not exactly, but a lot of them know the script.
That's a good point. Yes, they definitely, we talk a lot about getting to know the script where you're going to be turning a page, right? Because that's tricky. You don't want to be in the middle of something and have to turn the page and stop mid sentence. So we talk a lot about if you can memorize where you're going to flip the page, that it's a little seamless rather than stagnant. And then we also talked about memorizing certain areas where there are a lot of props. And opening scene, one of our characters has to carry quite a few cases, and she can't carry a book on top of that. So she's off book, so to speak, for that half a page. So they did a nice job figuring out where it was that they really had to put a little more time and attention in the script.
And talk about, Michelle, if you would, how long the process takes. In other words, um, you said you cast, I can't believe, a long time ago. So
Months.
how long does the process take? And then how often are rehearsals?
Oh my goodness. So people who come and see the show, I want them to be extra impressed with this cast because we did 10 days of online Zoom rehearsals for 2 hours a day, 4 to 6. And then we had 2 full days at the theater. And then this week we're in theater Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the show opens Saturday.
I'm telling you, just listening to this is like unheard of. I've never heard of this for Reader's Theater. On the rehearsals, and this is another thing I guess you had to run into. So because this is an afternoon production, most of the rehearsals and work you're doing is in the afternoon. They have to be available.
Yes, that was a stipulation when we cast that it was going to be afternoon. So the way the theater works is when they have a main stage showing going on, they get the prime spots for
Sure.
rehearsals as well as the evening performances. And then the Readers Theaters and other shows will have afternoon rehearsals and afternoon performances. So the actors that signed on to be a part of this production knew that they needed to be available during the afternoon hours from 4 to 6.
And
Yeah.
talk about, Michelle, if you would, Reader's Theater then, in terms of, we're talking about the term, but a lot of people aren't familiar with it, and including me at times just have a very negative impression that you're helping change. What is Reader's Theater all about?
Well, it's interesting because I have never seen a Readers
Oh,
Theater.
really?
And I was a little thrown myself that when they hired me to direct Readers Theater, and I remember saying to Victoria, what does that mean? And she said, basically, you can do whatever you want. They just have to be holding their books. I said, okay. So I did a little research. I did a little studying on Readers Theaters and the different way it can be introduced. And I know what I found. I know many theaters, when they do Readers Theater, they have a narrator who actually is reading the stage
Right.
directions. But because I decided to go the avenue of having them up on their feet and blocking and props and costumes and everything else, we have just enough of the script conveyed to the audience where we didn't need stage directions read. So it really is a true production. They're just walking around with their books in hand. And as I said earlier, there's so many different ways you can do Readers Theaters, but many times it is with a narrator reading all those little stage directions of did it at so and so. We're not utilizing that in our production. They're actually doing the motions and going through the
It's funny
books.
because you
So
say that.
I think it's
That's
going to
one
be
of
a
the
lot of
things I
fun for
don't,
everybody.
one of the things I don't enjoy when they have the narrator, reading it. So I
Yes.
told you, unfortunately, I'll be out
Yes.
of town, but this sounds like my kind of Reader's Theater, if you would. Um, By the way, in case
Good.
we freeze, we're freezing a little bit. So if we freeze, I'll stop and come back to you. But I think we're back okay now.
Okay.
So in terms of this production,
All
so,
right.
so
Great.
you started casting it, you said, what, 5 months ago or how long ago when you started casting
It
it?
was yeah, about 5 or 6 months ago, I believe. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And fast forward, if you would, to what folks want to see this weekend, if they can come to Hendersonville Theater, has cast of 11. Can you share some of the people in the cast?
Absolutely. So my Hercule Poirot is being played by Mike Yao, which is a
And
very well-known actor in your neck of the woods.
yeah, good friend of mine.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Mike actually, when I directed Couples for Center Stage, I actually then turned right around and directed it for Sartre. And Mike starred in that version of the virtual play Couples. So that's how I got to know him. But I actually met his lovely wife, Karen, years ago when I got back into theater at Center Stage. She played Mother Superior in Sister Act, and I was one of the nuns. So I love to work with Mike and Karen. So
But
Mike's
by the
in the
way,
play.
let me stop you a second. I don't know if you got to see it, but Karen just was magnificent in a one woman play. Did you get to see
Yes,
it?
yes. I didn't get to see it. I did not get to see it. And her husband was running tech for her
Right.
for
Yeah.
that play as well. So
And it's a shame they lost the second week. I saw it the first week,
I
and she
know.
was just great. And then the hurricane knocked out the second week. So
Yes.
you already convinced me because I try to say anything, twisting my arm here a little bit. I think I'm due back Saturday night. Um, but Mike and Karen, anything they're in, I just love. Aside
Yes,
from Mike and
Mike
Karen,
is doing an incredible job with the lead role. I knew he was going to be perfect for the role, and he's not proving me wrong. He's proving me right. So I love that.
and
I also have
I
a very
could
good
just
friend that I've worked with quite a bit in Greenville. Her name is Arlene Black, and I pretty much begged her to ride up to Hendersonville to play Helen Hubbard for me, and she is wonderful in the role, and it is an hour and 15-minute drive for her.
I
So
can
she
imagine.
really
Yeah.
made a commitment, which I am very, very thankful for. And then some of the others are Natalie Broadway, Mark Reeves, Rick Forster, John Adams. Georgia Urson is playing our princess, and she is literally genius, absolutely genius in this role. I'm so excited for people to see her. Kit Brown, who's somewhat of a newcomer, is also in Kaylee Blasius, I think her last name is, and Joni Richardson and River Spade. I hope I
Okay.
remembered everyone.
Yeah, no, it's good. I
Yes.
know River. I've seen John Adams. I'm friendly with. Funny guy
Yep.
too. And
Yep.
so for the folks who don't know the show, there are some people out there who don't know Murder
Mhm.
on the Orient Express. If you can sum up kind of the Reader's Digest version in maybe under an hour, could you sum up what the show is all about?
Under an hour?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can do that in 2 minutes.
No, I was
The
going to give you an hour and
show,
15 minutes.
yeah,
Okay.
hour 50 minutes. The show is basically a whodunit mystery, murder mystery. I mean, that sums it up basically. I can't give out too much information. I don't want to ruin it for everyone, but we have a incredible cast of characters that board the Orient Express, and a murder takes place, and Hercule Poirot has to solve it with this cast of characters that he uh, ingeniously interviews and picks up his clues along the way. And it's very intriguing and interesting, and it's got some great comedy in it. It's a wonderful, wonderful play.
When is it set? The time, the years it's set, like
Oh, you're going to throw that at me, and I'm
about
not.
when? It's what, 1920s, 1930s?
Yeah, yeah. I believe that's around the time. Yes, 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 yes.
Let me ask you this question, Michelle. There was a cute ending to the show. I think I told you I saw it at Plot. They're doing they're doing Mousetrap.
Okay.
Um, but I don't know if you guys do this, but at the very end, you have to do, they do this in all plays that they have to take a pledge and you have to take a pledge not to reveal the ending.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I thought it was so cute. So at the end of it, it's kind of a twisting, turning, lots of twists and turns. Everybody has to raise their hand and pledge that they will not, because that's the secret of the success. Run like what 27 years in England, and so
Love it.
you have to swear that you won't tell anybody the ending, and that's how they keep the secret. But we won't
I
have to do
have
that.
not heard that. I love it. I might give that a little thought.
Okay.
Might give that
Well,
a little thought, Blaine.
yeah, no, it's just it was kind of threw me, because it was a
Yeah,
great ending, a twisty ending, like I'm sure this has too, and you had no idea how it was going to end. And all of a sudden, as they're taking their bows, they come up and one guy gets up and says, "Now," and it's the secret of success in London because was Mousetrap was paid like 27 years or something, and that's nobody knows the ending, So
I love it.
just a fun thing. So
That is
here,
fun.
but as you said, you won't tell the ending, so people have to guess it.
No, absolutely not. And I also want to say that, obviously it was just made into a movie, and I want
And we're frozen a little bit here. I don't know if we'll get Michelle back, but I'll talk over it and I'll pause just a second. We're back with Michele Colletti, and we're talking about a show that's going to be coming up this weekend at Hendersonville Theater. Michelle, you were talking about the fact that the show is pretty well known. There's been a movie version of it, and a lot of people have seen it. What's your hope in terms of seeing it if they see it again?
Well, I think for those people that know the story and know the ending, it's still going to be a wonderful experience. These actors have put so much time into their character development and their relationships with each other and their interaction with each other. So I think that even if you're familiar with the story and you know the ending, it's still such an enjoyable show from beginning to end. And I just hope that people will keep that in mind as well.
As you're saying that, it kind of gets me thinking about the fact that as I get older, the time framework of my remembering stuff is shorter and shorter. In other words, it used to be if I saw a movie or show, I never want to see it again.
Yes,
Then it became like 5 years, and now you're telling me I've seen Murder on Orient Express a bunch of
sure.
times. If you ask me who did it, I have no idea. So yeah, that's a good invitation. Don't get hung up if you think you know the story, because
Exactly.
you're going to have fun with
Exactly.
it regardless. For age appropriate, is it appropriate for any age, would you say?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I would say so. Probably, I mean, I would say maybe 12 and up. I would bring my 12-year-old to see it and up.
Okay,
Younger, I just don't think that they'll get the gist of it.
do you have a 12-year-old?
I don't.
Oh,
I have four grandchildren and three very grown children.
okay. Well, now the
Yes.
question is, will you invite them to come, or will any of them see it?
All of my children are invited, not my grandchildren because they're too young. They're all four and under. My husband and I are coming, and I can't wait. I can't wait for everyone to see it. Very few tickets left. So if you're watching this and you want to get in on it, there are very few. I think there's 3 or 4 tickets on Saturday and maybe the same 3 or 4 on
Is it
Sunday as
really?
well. So
And one of the nice things, if folks haven't been to Huntsville Theater, is that pretty much any location is a good location, wherever you
yes,
sit. Just a,
it
a, a lovely little theater.
it
And
really is a very nice, small, intimate theater. That was one thing I really loved about it when I went in for the first time. I was just, and you can see from any seat. You're absolutely right, and it is very small and very intimate, um, very small and very intimate. And I think with this show in particular, the audience is going to love um, that they're sort of in the middle of the action. We'll say.
down the road, do you see yourself doing more directing or acting?
That's a good question. That is a really good question. I'm used to doing musicals. I'm used to doing very big, splashy musicals. My resume has, as I said, No No Nanette and Godspell, Sugar, Chicago, Sister Act, Mamma Mia, all the big, splashy musicals. And I have to tell you, I got tired and my body got tired and my voice got tired. And I thought, for the first time in my life, I'm going to try a few straight shows. So I went to the theater downtown Greenville that I love working at, Center Stage, and I auditioned for just the straight shows that particular season. And I was cast in two, and I really kind of loved that character development without having to break to, you know, sing or dance or whatever comes with those big splashy musicals, costume changes. So I really did love that. But directing is definitely something I've always wanted to do. More in the traditional theater sense, not the big splashy variety shows for fundraisers, but more in this traditional sense. So now that I've gotten a little taste of that at Hendersonville Theater with Reader's Theater, I really do think that I would like to do some more directing at full scale shows and see where that takes me for sure.
Interesting you say that. I oftentimes ask actors who become directors what they prefer, and most people answer as you do, they prefer directing, but they're not telling the truth, Michelle, because the reality is that you don't have to memorize everything, so
That's very true. I have one musical, Blaine, that I have got to do before I get too old. It's the only one left on my bucket list. And then if I don't do any other musicals, I'm fine. And it's funny because I thought, oh, the straight shows, there's no choreography, there's no music and no harmony. And so one of the two that I was cast in, one particular was The Other Place at Center Stage. And I played Juliana, who never gets off stage. She's on stage the whole entire show. And it was more lines I've ever had to memorize in my life. And that was probably a time that I said to myself, directing's looking pretty good right now.
Well,
Because
I
it
was
was
going
a
to
lot.
ask you, but you were saying, so on your bucket list,
Mm.
what's on your bucket list?
Gypsy.
Oh, so you've never done it yet?
I have never done Gypsy. It's the last role I need to play in a musical before I can't anymore.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, no, there are other roles in Gypsy you could play. You could play Mama Rose, I guess you could be.
that's the only one I want,
Oh,
Blaine.
no.
That's the role. That is the dream role right there.
Well, but that could be, you have another 20 years you could still play Mama
Oh, I
Rose.
hope so. You're very kind.
Yeah. Anyway, so after this run ends, just if you would repeat key information, it's just one weekend, right? Only two
Yes, yes.
performances, and
This coming
when
Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m.
okay. And if folks want to get tickets, do you have the website handy?
Hendersonvilletheater.org.
Okay, and most importantly, how do you spell theater?
Theatre.
TRE. Okay,
Yes.
good. I
I'm
do
going to
now.
check that, Blaine, because if I get it wrong, it would be horrible that I sent somebody to the
I think you
wrong.
have it right, right?
I think I do too.
Okay.
Yes, or you can call the box office, and I do not have that number handy.
But that's why they invented Google. They can look it up. But
Absolutely.
one of the interesting things also, you probably may have heard this, the Hendersonville Theater changed its name, which I thought was kind of cool. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
No.
they used to be Hendersonville Community Theater, and
Okay.
they dropped the community not too long ago, and so
Interesting.
I like it. And a final question, Michele, that after this weekend run, if you can share any future plans with you, or anything you're going to be doing in the near future?
Well, I right now I'm closing down a contract at my job. I work at Greenville Technical College, and I took a 5-year contract for a Title III grant program there, and I'm winding that down this year in April of 2025. And then my husband and I are going to be traveling out of the country for a couple months, and then I will probably jump into season 25, 26 auditions.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get to see you in a whole bunch of things in the near future.
I
And
would
I
love
thank you for being my guest. I should ask also, by the way, aside from tracking you down through this show, if people want to find out about what you're up to, you have a website, you have a Facebook page, is there any
I do.
place that,
Yes, I have a website. It's Michele with one L, MicheleColletti.com is my website. And on Facebook, it's Michele Colletti dash actor is my Facebook
and
page.
so thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World webcast. Also, thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and hopefully somewhere down the road we'll bump into each other, Michele. That'd be
I would
great.
love it. Thanks so much for your time, Blaine.
Okay, likewise.